But I, first of all, have a beef to pick with Jason Scheer. A very big beef. Jason Scheer messages me as a Big 12 media person, and he says, I am going to pick Kansas State to win it. To which I immediately called him and said, what are you doing? This is true, Scheer.
Yes, this is true.
All right.
I have never put in – well, go ahead.
All right. And so then he goes on this whole thing, and he's clearly been bamboozled by all of the Las Vegas folks. And he's like, oh, Kansas State's the pick to win. And then we will get into what some of Scheer's nuances. But Scheer, make the case as to why you initially were backing a different Wildcat.
So, first off, the Big 12 ballot is crazy. I have spent more time on this than I ever did any Pac-12 ballot because I knew most of that off the top of my head and all that. They ask you for offensive linemen. They ask you for a fullback. They ask you for kickers, and they don't give you choices. You got to research. I went back and forth. I told you this on the phone. I wasn't comfortable with anybody at number one. You made a good point, and I agreed with it, that you can look at holes for every single team in the Big 12 in their major issues. The reason I had Kansas State is I just felt that they're well coached. You know what they got. They have a good running game. They're solid defensively. And then I started to look into them more, and I didn't feel comfortable with the quarterback.
As looking into them more, as in Mike Luke told me the right way to go, and I followed that path. Is this true?
Yeah, but I looked at every I don't know if we're talking about every team has a large issue.
Here's my beef with your argument, and it was phooey, it was nonsense, it was poppycock. The big reason why you're like, well, Arizona, you're like, well, who's the second cornerback? Fair question. And you're like, well, we don't know if Malachi Riley's good. We will revisit that here later on in the show. But, Scheer, the big thing, though, and then I said, oh, well, how about Kansas State? You're going with the guy who started one game in his entire career? That is a bigger question mark than who the number 2 cornerback is, Jason Scheer. This is true.
But Noah Fafita, up until last year, had never started.
Well, but are you saying that Avery Johnson is Noah Fafita? Are you going to go on record?
I'm saying there has to be some type of projection in this. There has to be. Arizona has no second corner right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know. For all we know, Demetrius Freeney could come and be awesome. Marquise Killebrew could be awesome. And we're projecting that. You're projecting Malachi Riley to be good, right? Which is fair. But you can't project Malachi Riley to be good and then not project anybody else in the Big 12.
But what's a little bit different, though? A number 2 wide receiver or the starting quarterback? One of these positions is not created equal, Jason.
Yeah, and I get it. I actually, in my final ballot, I'll give you a hint. I'm not giving my final ballot.
We don't need your final ballot. I'm just going to ask you where 4 teams are, and you can just tell me that. It won't be the final ballot, just 4 teams.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, but go ahead. Sorry, I interrupt. I get very excited.
I dropped Kansas State considerably after doing more research on them and what they lost. I didn't feel comfortable in it, and I agree with you. Johnson could be awesome, but it wasn't just Johnson. Dylan Edwards, we're making him out to be a really good running back. Giddens is good, but they lost some things, and it's tough. It's tough.
All right. Now, let's. I'm going to ask some teams here. Common to Mike W. Very, very excited. All right, Scheer. So you went back in the A. You have Arizona at number 1. True.
Yes, and it's look. I just want to say here, I am not comfortable with my top 5, but I don't know if I'm ever gonna. No. Let me say this. I think in the Pac-12 last year, we knew, right? We knew it was Washington and Oregon, and some people had USC, right? Preseason. I think you're going to see 5 teams get first place votes this year.
All right. I don't know. I don't think there's a lot of love for Arizona. I don't think there's a lot of A backing right now. I do not like this. Now, we got the whole Big 12. Erica Elday, the great Erica Elday, out of the shower already. She says, Mike, we got the whole Big 12 saying smelly, rainy Seattle, though huge W all the way around. Yes. Now, let's get back to Arizona here. So you're backing them at number 1. I agree with you entirely. We're going to talk about some of the strengths and the question marks here in a second, the fruits, the creams, all of that stuff. Now, another one that I believe I convinced you to.
You did not. I did not do this.
You don't have ASU at 16?
I do not.
Why? Dude, this is the perfect opportunity.
I know, but I wanted to take this seriously, and Mike, I have him at 14. It's not like a big deal here.
All right, so just move him to 16.
BYU, Houston, and Cincinnati are really bad this year.
I'll still take BYU sight unseen over ASU, as will you.
Really just bad.
All right, now here's what now for the coach of the year. Here's what we need to. Here's where you and I were talking about. We pick ASU to finish last, but we give Dilly the coach of the year.
There's no preseason coach of the year, but Dilly's been nice, so we would vote him.
Yeah. All right. Now, now another one that I think people are losing a little bit on is Mike Gundy.
First, it's Jeff Van Gundy, Mike Van Gundy.
Yes, Mike Gundy. People are picking them to finish 9th. Oklahoma State is recession-proof under Mike Gundy. I think Oklahoma State is going to surprise Scheer. Plus, they have a good backfield.
I have them 5th.
Okay.
I have them 5th, and it wouldn't surprise me if they were higher. I'm not a big Alan Bowman guy, who apparently is returning to college again. I don't know if you do that. That's his 7th year.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 7th year.
I didn't know he was back.
I know. 7th year. Ollie Gordon is awesome. Nicholas Marta, the linebacker, is a freak. Their defense wasn't very good last year. I'm not a big fan of Bowman, but their schedule actually isn't bad too. I like Oklahoma State.
All right, now Kansas. Kansas is a very good quarterback. We very, very, very. Is it Jalen Wilson?
Jalen Daniels.
Jalen Daniels is very good.
So I had a deep thought process between Kansas and Utah. And the issue is that if everyone is saying, if you read these power rankings, everyone keeps going back to the health of Jalen Daniels because he was hurt last year. Cam Rising hasn't thrown a football in how long?
Like 3 years.
Right. So why am I assuming that he's healthy and putting Utah ahead of Kansas because of that?
Right.
Kansas has Devin Neal, the running back. They returned one of the best cornerbacks in Kobe Bryant. That's his name.
Kobe Bryant, very good.
Cobee, not to be confused. In the country, they return him. I have Kansas number 2 in the Big 12.
I like it. And Lance Leipold. Did you know where Lance Leipold has lived in the past?
Crete, Nebraska.
Crete, Nebraska, my friends. Kansas, baby. And you know what? Want to know why this guy is leader of men? He turned down smelly, rainy Seattle. He said, I will have nothing to do with smelly, rainy
let's not let that go to the wayside here. Washington's first choice was not Jed Fish.
Right. It was Lance Leipold.
It was absolutely Lance Leipold.
Yes, and he said, I will not hang out in smelly, rainy Seattle. I will not do this. And that's where, yes, Whitewater, Wisconsin as well. But we only claim Crete, Nebraska on this show. All right, now let's talk a little bit about, again, Utah. Listen, I saw the Utah offense without Cam Rising. I never want to see that again. I do not understand why people are so bullish on Utah because, again, this could be – who was the guy who was at Central Florida, and he was awesome, and they kept saying, oh, well, he's going to be able to come back this year, and he just couldn't. Malachi Milton, was that it?
Mackenzie Milton. But
Mackenzie Milton.
I will say this. That might be there's a few sleeper teams. I think UCF is one of them. Their quarterback now is KJ Jefferson from Arkansas.
They have talent.
Yeah, they have talent. I think Iowa State is being a little underlooked. I didn't realize how many guys returned for Iowa State. Their wide receiver core is really good. The top of the Big 12, I think, is actually getting a little bit, underappreciated.
That's where I was going to go next with this. The Big 12 is not a bad football conference. You always hear these dorks over that are in the Big 10 now. Look at us, dude. We get to play Iowa and Wisconsin or whatever, all those bum schools. Dude, I'm telling you, man, the Big 12 is not bad.
No, like Arizona, Kansas, Utah, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, legitimately good. Then you have West Virginia, UCF. I think the bottom of the conference is really bad, but you could probably say that for most conferences.
Yes. Now, let's talk the all-conference team, my friend.
This was hard.
All right. Now, I helped you pick 6 players right off the top, and Scheer would not do it. I tried to get him to pick Jacob Manu to be the defensive player of the year. You would not do this, Scheer. You stood strong.
No. Yeah, I wasn't going to do that. My biggest thing was the offensive player of the year. I struggled with that.
Scheer, this is where you're trying to be a journalist. You're trying to go the Brian Peterson route. And
come on,
we're in the year 2024. We don't need to do any of this.
Come on. That's tough. That's legitimately.
Noah Fafita is your conference preseason player of the year. Period. Point blank, boom.
But he won't win it. We agree with that, right?
I don't know.
I mean, I wound up going with Noah, but he won't get it.
You win with Noah. Good job.